I don't take photos except for when I take photos. I turned down 3 photos this week. With Make-A-Wish kids in wheelchairs. I tour for the money. I'd rather be playing Last of Us Part 1 and 2, which was made by Jewish people. Good job, thank you. Oh, some of my best friends are Jewish, and I don't trust any of them. I am a Nazi. These are the tweets sent by the Hitlericist and philosopher of our time, Kanye West. Unfortunately, that last one that read out, him saying that he's a Nazi, currently sits at 183,000 likes. So things are going well for us. My favorite he sent 5 days ago, he was sending another shitstorm of bunkum, and he tweeted, "Fuck reading and anyone who can do it." I've been practicing reading recently. I decided to read finally. I finally got around to it, reading The Wizard of Oz, because I've been a huge fan of the movie for a long time, like since I was a kid. We used to have this copy of it on VHS. It was like a special anniversary edition, I think. And in the front, there was a little puzzle. And I remember when I was a kid, I struggled with that puzzle, endlessly getting it right. But the other day I googled it and I found out in that puzzle there was only like 9 pieces. Anyway, I've been reading the book, and as I went through it, I made some notes, which I thought would be interesting to make a video about. I wasn't making the notes for a video. I was making the notes because it helps me to remember what's in something. My ADHD is so severe that I make notes of things so that afterwards I can review the notes. And then when I read the notes, I thought, by goodness, these would make a great video. So we're going to go through my notes, but I just want to say, this isn't like a professorial breakdown. I legitimately just made random off-the-cuff notes. For example, I made the note, the very first note I made was, isn't it strange that the Wicked Witch of the East wears the same size shoes as the 10-year-old Dorothy? So don't expect anything like super big brain, alright? Alright, so the first thing that I picked up on was in chapter 1, they're describing Kansas, the Kansas prairies, and they are described as grey, and everything is grey. The sky is grey, and the grass is grey because of the arid heat of the sun. It's dried out everything, and the house is grey. Now, the thing that I thought was interesting there is, because that's how it is in the movie, but I assumed that when they were making the movie, and the movie starts out like desaturated, and then the colour comes in later, I thought that they were just trying to show off their new tech. They were like, look at our new Technicolor equipment. So they just like, there's a build up to it, so you're really... No, it's in the book. Everything is grey in Kansas. Even the people are grey. The people who have lived there, Aunt Em and Uncle Henry, they just listen to how Aunt Em is described. This is beautifully poetic, by the way. When Aunt Em came to live there, she was a young, pretty wife. The sun and wind had changed her too. They had taken the sparkle from her eyes and left them a sober grey. They had taken the red from her cheeks and lips, and they were grey also. She was thin and gaunt and never smiled now. When Dorothy, who was an orphan, she was an orphan in the book. I mean, it makes sense, but they don't say that in the movie. When Dorothy, who was an orphan, first came to her, Aunt Em had been so startled by the child's laughter that she would scream and press her hand upon her heart whenever Dorothy's merry voice reached her ears, and she still looked at the little girl with the wonder that she could find anything to laugh at. Aww. It is beautiful. It's beautiful stuff. The next part is the cyclone. So, as you remember in the movie, the cyclone comes along and it half inches the house, tosses it up into the air, and it spins off. So, in the movie, Dorothy goes up to the window and she looks out and sees all the people whizzing by the window, right? In the book, she goes to sleep. She gets so bored of the cyclone that she goes to sleep. Check this out. Hour after hour passed away, and slowly Dorothy got over her fright. But she felt quite lonely, and the wind shrieked so loudly all about her that she nearly became deaf. At first, she had wondered if she would be dashed to pieces when the house fell again. But as the hours passed and nothing terrible happened, she stopped worrying and resolved to wait calmly and see what the future would bring. At last she crawled over the swaying floor to her bed and lay down upon it, and Toto followed and lay down beside her too. In spite of the swaying of the house and the wailing of the wind, Dorothy soon closed her eyes and fell asleep. So Dorothy is like, "Ooh, this cyclone's proper boring, Toto. Oh, don't mind me." So then, like in the movie, the house slams down upon the cadaver of the Wicked Witch of the East. And standing off in the distance is the Good Witch of the North, who isn't mentioned in the movie. And to be fair, she's barely mentioned in the book. The Good Witch of the North comes over, and she takes the silver shoes off of the feet, the tootsies of the dead Wicked Witch of the East, and gives them to Dorothy. And as I said, tiny feet. She's got tiny, tiny feet. Chapter 3 comes along, and this is when things really start to take off. So we meet the Scarecrow. So Dorothy's telling the Scarecrow about Kansas, and she describes it like I did. Everything is just grey and banal. And then the Scarecrow listened carefully, and then said, I cannot understand why you should wish to leave this beautiful land and return to the dry, grey place that you call Kansas. And then Dorothy says, completely out of pocket, that is because you have no brains. And then she carries on, no matter how dreary and grey our homes are, we, people of flesh and blood, would rather live there than in any other country, be it ever so beautiful. There is no place like home. So this resonates with me, because, like, this feels like she's got the energy of like a middle-aged fat white man from a small one-horse town in the UK. It's like, listen, pal, I were born in a shithole and I shall bloody well die in a shithole, alright? Don't give me any of this gilded nonsense. Of course I cannot understand it, the Scarecrow replies. If your heads were stuffed with straw, like mine, you would probably all live in beautiful places, and then Kansas would have no people at all. It is fortunate for Kansas that you have brains. This to me feels like reverse psychology. For a person with no brains, the Scarecrow is remarkably good at manipulating people, isn't he? So then in chapter 5, we learn the backstory behind the Tin Man. He wasn't always a Tin Man. He used to be a human man who was a woodsman, just like his dad. He was a woodsman who was in love with a beautiful munchkin girl who he wanted to marry. And this girl said to him, listen, if you earn enough money, we will get married and I will move out of my mother's house to be with you. The mother didn't like that. The mother said nay. Her mother, unbeknownst to them, went to the Wicked Witch of the East and got the Wicked Witch of the East to put a curse upon his axe so that every time he went to chop up lumber, it would miss the lumber and hit one of his limbs, and slowly he would decapitate himself. So over time, at the beginning, he lost a leg, which was traumatic, but he went and got the tinsman to build him a new leg. And then he chopped off the other leg, and he got the tinsman to rebuild his other leg. And then the arms went, and next his head, unfortunately, by happenstance, the Tin Man came across his body and went, clumsy, I'll make you a new head. And then the final blow was he swung the axe and it hit him in the torso, cutting him in two, and he lost his heart. And his heart fell out. And because his heart fell out, he was no longer able to feel love for his munchkin girl, and that's why he wanted his heart back. He was just a man who wanted to feel love. Oh, man. So then, in the next chapter, we meet the Cowardly Lion, and the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion are having this conversation where they're getting to know each other, and then the Tin Man just tries to make it all about him. So the Scarecrow says, the King of Beasts shouldn't be a coward, said the Scarecrow. I know it, returned the Lion, wiping a tear from his eye with the tip of his tail. It is my great sorrow, and makes my life very unhappy. But whenever there is danger, my heart begins to beat fast. And then the Tin Man interrupts, maybe you have heart disease. The Lion then responds, it may be, maybe, perhaps, I can't rule it out, so thanks for the suggestion. And the Tin Man, again, he just wants sympathy, very clearly just wants sympathy. He goes, if you have, you ought to be glad, for it proves you have a heart. For my part, I have no heart, so I can never have heart disease. Oh, that poor bastard. Never gonna have heart disease. Poor bastard. Never have heart disease. The gang finally arrive in Oz, and they meet the wizard, who isn't a wizard. He's a ventriloquist. He worked in a circus, he was a ventriloquist, his act got a bit old, and he went, oh, well, I'll find something else. I'll become a balloon man, and I'll just go up in the balloon to advertise for the circus, and made a hames of the whole thing, and blew off into Oz in the same fashion that Dorothy did in the house. They organize their meeting with the Wizard of Oz, and he says, I will grant all of your wishes for a heart and a brains and courage, and for you to go home, little lady, but only if you kill that witch, because she's quite a pest. And I saw how good you did with the Wicked Witch of the East. Good job with that. I need you to kill another witch, the other bad one, and then we got a deal. And they go, oh, but I don't want to do that. Fine. All right, fine. Okay, then. And then just go off to do it. So then the gang set off to ostensibly go kill the witch. And long story short, basically, there's a thing called the Golden Cap, which the Wicked Witch of the West has, which if you wear it, the winged monkeys will serve you 3 wishes. She has used 2 of her wishes already. One of them was to conquer her slaves. The Winkies. There's a lot of slavery in here. The Winkies are basically the Wicked Witch of the West's version of the Munchkins. And then she used the second wish to cast the wizard out of her land, out of the West. And then the third one she uses to capture the gang in order to stop the coup. So they take the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and they scatter them off in the distance, you know, remove their straw and bust them open. And then she keeps the lion in the garden in a cage, and then she tries to keep Dorothy as another slave, like she doesn't have enough slaves. But secretly, the Wicked Witch of the West wants her shoes. She wants the magic silver shoes, right? Those. Apparently, she's got tiny feet as well. She goes, those shoes are sick. I want them on my tootsies. So she wants the shoes, but she can't take them because she's constantly wearing the shoes. And when Dorothy goes to sleep on a night and she takes them off, she switches the light off. And the Wicked Witch of the West is canonically scared of the dark. That's unfortunate, isn't it? So she concocts this plan on how she's going to take the shoes. She thinks, I'll trip her up, and when her shoes fall off, I'll take them. And she does it almost to perfection. So she trips her up. Dorothy loses a shoe. The witch grabs the shoe and goes, ha, I've got your shoe. And then Dorothy is so incensed by this seeming bullying action that she grabs the bucket of water and throws it over the witch, which kills the witch. So in the book, the reason Dorothy kills the witch is because she stole one of her shoes. In her defense, she didn't know that was going to kill the witch. She thought that she was being equally petty. Like, oh, you'll take my shoes? Well, take this, bitch. So now they fulfilled his request. They go back to the wizard and they go, hey, you wanted that witch killed? We killed the witch. And the wizard goes, that's wonderful, thanks so much. And there's that bit in the movie where he goes, you didn't need a brain. You've had a brain all along. And you didn't need a heart for your loving and that sort of thing, right? Absolute rhubarb. In the book, he tries that and it doesn't work. So he comes up with alternate plans. And what he does is, he decides to fulfill their wishes by basically bullshitting them. So he goes to the Scarecrow. He lays him down, he hollows out his head, he takes the hay, and he mixes it with bran and needles, pins and needles, and then stuffs it back in his head, deforming his bonds, and then goes, there you go, that's brains. I suppose it's easy for you to fool someone who doesn't have brains. So then the Tin Man comes in, I wanted a heart. And he goes, I've got you a heart, which I have made out of silk and sawdust. And so he cuts a hole in him, drops in this little gubbin that he's made, and seals him back up. And the Tin Man goes, hooray, I feel so much love now. He should have known. He was so, besotted with that munchkin. He should have known. He should have known. Then, the Cowardly Lion drinks something from a green square bottle. We don't find out what it is, but he feels better. Maybe like an energy drink. Or like Pepto-Bismol. I don't know. But he feels courageous. And that's all that matters. And then, for Dorothy, he goes away for a few days. He ponders it. And he goes, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a hot air balloon. We're going to get in it. And then, fingers crossed, we end up in Kansas. And obviously you'll know from the movie, she's not there because Toto is being disobedient. And so she misses her ride home. Personally, my favourite parts of this book are when people are just out of pocket for no reason. And at the end of the book, so they go to Galinda, the Good Witch of the South, and they ask if she can help Dorothy to get home. And so she agrees to it. And she says, I'm going to use the golden cap in order to get your friends back to where they came from. And she says to the Scarecrow, who has been left in control of Oz for some reason, the wizard when he left said, I want that deformed Scarecrow with the needles in his head. I want him to be in control of this nation that I built, apparently. So she turns to the Scarecrow and she says, by means of the golden cap, I shall command the winged monkeys to carry you to the gates of the Emerald City, said Galinda, for it would be a shame to deprive the people of so wonderful a ruler. And then the Scarecrow says, just fishing for compliments, am I really wonderful? And then Galinda replies, You are unusual. It's so unnecessary. And that is my review of the book. I give it a 10 out of 10. I've loved every second. Again, this wasn't supposed to be some in-depth review or like comparison to the movie. Those were just the things that I took note of when I was reading it. If you want some breakdown, there's probably endless breakdowns that people who are much smarter than me will have done out there. So you can search that up, or you can read it yourself. I mean, it is only 175 pages. Even Kanye West might be able to struggle through that. We deserve each other, me and Bob.